As always, we appreciate you taking us along on all of those long runs, but do us a favor. Pause your watch, grab a gel, and hit subscribe on whatever platform where you're listening. While you're at it, why don't you just leave a review? I mean, you already hit pause on your watch, so why not? But enough of that. Let's get into the episode. And I'm going to read his introduction while he's sitting right next to me. It's the first time we have an in studio guest. And if you know our next guest, you know he's the kind of guy that would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it, and he would go without. He's a huge supporter of the running community and will have you adding to your blueprint to ultra on mental toughness and fortitude. I have the pleasure of doing a few training runs with and crewing him on his most recent FKT attempt. He is a big advocate for awareness surrounding mental illness and how running helped along in his own journey. He is always up for an adventure and has some hard races like the ABC 50 miler and the 100-mile club 24-hour race where he put in 80 miles on a high school track. When we first reached out to him to be part of the show, he excitedly accepted. But then a few days later, he asked, "Why me?" And I told him that everyone has a story and that we can learn from all types of runners. It doesn't matter if you have an extensive ultra sign up resume or not, we can learn from you. I also let him know that if he connects with just one person out there, then he's done his job. And I'm sure he'll connect with more than one of you. With that, we're excited to have Cody Bradley in the studio, the West Coast studio of Blueprint to Ultra.
Thank you guys so much. I'm excited. Round two.
Round two. Cody, man, thank you so much for joining us. As Cody just said, round two, we had some technical difficulties. We tried to do this a week ago with Cody, and we are re-recording and starting it all over because we believe Cody has an incredible story, and we want you to hear it as well. So I'm going to begin like I did last time. Cody, you on Instagram, I didn't know you before we met you, just through social media and everything, and Steve kind of told me about you. He said he'd run with you before and everything, but on Instagram, your Instagram name is Running with Purpose 314. It is a unique name. When I say unique, it's because my name is not very unique at all. It's actually, my Instagram name is my name. And Steve is SoCal Runner, which he runs in Southern California. So that's not very unique either. Not the most.
Very boring.
Yeah, we're not really special people, Steve. Sorry about that. But Cody, you have got a really cool name. And anybody who puts an Instagram name like Running with Purpose 314, again, to me, it means that there's a rationale or reason behind it. So for our audience, for those listening, can you tell us again why you have this Instagram handle of Running with Purpose?
Well, I wanted to, so obviously my Instagram page is running based. And that's how I believe I can kind of get my message out to the world, as far as the mental illness side of it. Running really, I wouldn't say running is my purpose. I would say my kids are my purpose, and running kind of gives me a way to live for my purpose, if that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does in my mind. I don't know.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I was just sitting on the couch. My brother passed away. Again, I was just trying to figure out a name rather than just my name, Cody Bradley, right? And Running with Purpose, that was pretty much the first thing that came to my mind, and it really is because running, but how much it gives me to live for my purpose. And then 314 is my brother's birthday. I started doing the Instagram thing after my brother passed, and it's dedicated to him. He suffered from mental illness as well. And unfortunately, it pretty much overcame him, and drug addiction hit, and he overdosed. But I just tried to. I made a promise to my brother that I would do my best to save a life, and if that means I used him as an example for a lot of that time, just because I was so embarrassed of my own mental illness. This is kind of new to open up to the world about it, but I ultimately think that by telling people my pain, my story, what running really does for me and what it can do for others is kind of the way to go. And not to take anything away from my brother, because he's a big part of it. And just driving to Steve's house down the street from here, I got a memory of my brother. He was in a sober living home, and I went and took him out to lunch and everything. So it's just cool to even get that memory, to kind of go off subject of your question.
It doesn't seem off
Yeah.
subject. I mean, if
Yeah.
that's, you said your name is Running with Purpose and it's dedicated to your brother. And so, part of this is about raising awareness for yourself. Like you said, you personally struggled with mental illness, and your brother did as well. When you say that you want to dedicate it to your brother, your page and everything, what is it that you want people to understand about mental illness?
I want people to understand really that I think there's a lot more people that struggle, that do not talk about it, that are embarrassed, like how I am and how I was. Not so much for me anymore. I'm just in a point in my life where I don't really care what other people think, but that insecurity does hit time to time. But I want others to really know that they're not alone. There is ways to manage the negative thoughts, emotions, and I believe what I believe helps me, and it really works for me, is attacking that negative emotion and thought with positive action. That and it doesn't have to be running. It could be anything really. But there is a way to manage it. It's an illness. It's not something that is curable. You live with it every day. It hits you any time of the day. You could have the best time of your life, and something just triggers it. For me personally, that's all I really know. But seeing my brother as well, it seemed like that too. So just know, everybody, that no matter the circumstance, even if it's not mental illness, drug addiction, homelessness, obesity, those are things that I'm familiar with, that I've gone through growing up. I was 200 pounds at one time, and that was from taking the medication for my mental illness. The side effect was massive weight gain. And within 2 months, I blew up 40 to 50 pounds. And then I couldn't burn it off for a while until I actually changed my lifestyle and got healthy.
Mental illness is a broad, I guess, statement. It's a broad idea. There's a variety of different types of mental illnesses as well. Do you mind sharing what kind that you currently deal with?
No, not at all. So I was diagnosed with PTSD when I was about 15 years old. And I mean, to be honest, that diagnosis could be right. It could be wrong. Especially because I was 15 at the time, and now I'm turning 35 this year. I've been through way more, tenfold, 1,000-fold, like. So as far as that diagnosis, it could be different, but it doesn't matter to me. I don't care what my diagnosis is. I know that I struggle. I know what my symptoms are, and that I've been dealing with. Yeah, they've definitely gotten worse. They brought up by positive stressors, negative stressors. So it's a little tricky. Yeah.
And I mean, I find that a lot of times when, just for myself, and I don't struggle with the same stuff that you do, but I find that if you're vulnerable and you put yourself out there, that's when most of the people in the community respond, is when you show that you're vulnerable and that you are, a person, and you're not just putting out all of this fake stuff on Instagram just to be on Instagram. So just being vulnerable and open, I think, is helping a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. And that's exactly why I do this. Because trust me, I go through my Instagram, I'm like, dude, why am I doing this? I did it this morning, and that's why I came across the video I put out originally, out like a week after my brother passed. It was just explaining what I plan to do. I'm not sure if you saw it, Jeff, but it just that's the video I made the promise to my brother, and I'm kind of losing train of thought here.
Well, I feel bad because I haven't listened to it yet, watched it yet. So now I feel like I need to go. I need to go out there and like hit like and all that stuff. And all my Instagram people also know it's like that. It's that immediate pressure, like, oh, I missed something. I need to kind of hit on and everything. So one of the things, though, that again, it's running with a purpose, and you've talked a little bit about this, the purpose side of it to some degree. But how has running played into that, and how does running kind of support you in your own struggles with mental illness?
Thank you for asking that. It's I could easily say running saved my life. And that's like not even being gentle about it, right? It literally saved my life. So backstory, my father passed away and I didn't deal with that very well. Um, I drank very heavily every night and I dabbled a little bit, unfortunately with drugs. And I it just was not a good spot for me, right? I knew I got weird, man. I got weird. Drugs, alcohol do not mix with mental illness. It's weird. So I knew after my brother passed, I knew I needed to dedicate my time and all my negative energy into something positive. And I was running, but I was not I was running and I knew what it would do for me, but I wasn't in the ultra scene yet, right?
Mhm.
So really, I can go on a run. So one of the major side effects, no, symptoms, I mean, of my mental illness is racing thoughts.
Mhm.
Very, very hard to explain, but picture being in like a football stadium, that noise just going on in your head and then trying to process a thought, like, but your thoughts are like just coming, and that's hard to explain, but that's kind of the best way to do it. It's hard to even to just open my eyes, to be honest. I can go on a run and it's not every time, right? Because this is a running is a tool for me. It's a way to manage. It's not a fixer, right? There's nothing that will permanently fix me, and I know that. But I can go on a run and I hit a certain mile, not every time, right? And not every pace, but I can put my head down with my music grind and I'll just keep, just slowly moving, fast moving. And I'm so in my head that I'm like trying to get out of my head, if that
Mhm.
makes sense too. But I'll hit a certain mile just from grinding, right? I'm just like 3 hours into it, and all of a sudden my thoughts become clear, right? And it's a fucking beautiful thing because nothing else has ever done this for me. I can process a thought, and not only that, I can make sense of my traumas, which is like so crazy to me because I'm I'm like being a therapist for myself, like yeah, like I literally I do a lot of self-talk. I do a lot of, and this is all running.
Mhm.
Something about pushing the body and mind and then syncing it together when you're in this kind of headspace is a very beautiful and like there's nothing else like it. And that's a reason I run solo a lot.
Mhm.
I love running with people because I love vibing with people. I
Mhm.
love the running community. I've been accepted open arms, like I haven't known Steve for that long, and like he's my best friend.
Yeah.
So to have open arms, but they also understand when you're running by yourself.
Mhm.
Nobody takes it personal, like, oh, why aren't you hitting me up?
Yeah.
I actually have friends that reach out to me that notice that I run solo a lot, and they actually ask me if I'm okay. How's your mental health? I've never had friends do that, I've had friends reach out to me, old friends, from the past growing up, but never like, how's your mental health, right?
Mhm.
That's the question. How's your mental health? How are you feeling?
Mm.
So that's really what running has done for me. There's way more in-depth story that I could tell you, but I just don't think I'm ready for that right now. I actually,
I mean,
there's
you've got us on
stuff
the
I
edge
gotta,
of our you've got us on the edge of our seats now. Like, oh gosh, what is that? I can't
well,
imagine.
it's,
So one of the things you said actually a few things that really got my attention, and one of them, I think the first I'll mention is you talked about the idea that when you described your thoughts, your anxious thoughts and stuff, you're like in the stadium and they're racing, they're coming at you at 1,000 miles an hour, and they're going all different directions, and I'm sure the volume just continues to crescendo up higher and higher, and yet when you go run, in my mind as you're explaining this, it's like even when I run, everything kind of just slows down as I get into an easy, and it has to be an easy run. Like if I'm doing a hard run, then I can't think at all because it's just stupid, right? But if it's an easy, slow run, and like I'm talking about like easy, like conversational pace, RPE 4, whatever, zone 1, zone borderline zone 2, if you need to, whatever you want to call it in your training, right?
yeah,
When you have a low heart rate type run, I have found that you can think and you can excuse me, and you don't get bogged down with a bunch of thoughts. You find a few thoughts that you can kind of focus in on and begin to kind of work through and stuff. And so I think a lot of runners that are listening to this can relate to that as well, that that's what they find in a easy run, that they have the opportunity. They can lose themselves in an audiobook, they can lose themselves in a song, or they can lose themselves in their thoughts. And a lot of people kind of allow running to be that escape, if you will, from that. The other thing that you said, as you're at Steve's house and he is now your ultra running community, which I laugh because it is a welcoming community and it is one of the most supportive communities. And I think you, myself, Steve, and everybody listening, we have found a place that we fit in, regardless of what our background and our upbringing is. I am a solo runner too, and yet I love the ultra running community. I think you can love the ultra running community. You don't have to run with the ultra running community all the time. Like it doesn't mean you don't love them. It means that you find them to be one of the most supportive communities you can be a part of, but you also enjoy running by yourselves. And I think that's okay too. So Steve, did you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, no, I do the same thing, right? Because I coach, so I coach and I run with a bunch of groups, all the time on like Tuesdays and Saturdays. But I really do enjoy my solo runs as well. And like to echo what Cody said, like for me, especially out on the trail, because you really can't think of anything else. That's like the only time I'm able to just completely be present for like 2.5 hours a day. I'm really not thinking about anything else, which is great. Unless there's like one really big pressing thing, and then I get to work through that usually. But for the most part, I'm just out there just being and trying not to trip over myself on the trail.
That's awesome. So one of the things that I find fascinating for many of us that have had, I don't know, I'm going to use the word trauma loosely, I guess here. I don't even like to use that word very much, but I've had challenging circumstances that as we've been growing up, regardless of what they've looked like, right? Is that people see us now and they've known us in the past. They've seen us in two different stages of our life, if you will. I imagine that your wife has seen multiple stages in the life of Cody, right? How would she define the person that she sees now?
ooh, that's a hard one. Ooh, I don't even know what to say to that. Well, I
Well,
mean, to be honest,
she's seen you at your worst and she's seen you at your best.
she has,
Which does she like the most?
Oh, come on.
I mean, right?
My worst. No,
Better not be that.
no, I wish I could ask her that, to be honest. That's a good question. I would love to hear from her, but she has seen me through my worst. Right after my daughter was being born, I was getting married and my father passed, right? And that was by far the deepest pain up until this point in my life that I've ever felt in my life. And to be honest, like the drinking and all that, I if I was her, I would have left me, right? Because there was times where I was drinking liquor, Jack Daniels is what I like to drink. And I'm not a good drunk anyways, like
I don't think many people are. They think they are, but not.
for the first like swig, like I oh shoot, I forgot where I was going with that one. She put up with a lot of my shit. That's where I was going. I drank a lot and I would do blackout drunk stuff. I don't know. Crazy stuff. But my wife put up with a lot of my shit. I hope this is what I hope. I hope that she really sees that I'm really just trying to be my best self for my kids and her. I say kids first because kids are everything, right? My kids are everything to me. They will always come first, and she knows this too. So she doesn't. She won't feel a certain way. Yeah, I hope that she thinks that she knows that I'm trying every day, and she knows that I struggle, right? And I'm sure that I'm definitely not the best husband. A lot of the time, even nowadays, right? Because I don't drink anymore. I don't do the other stuff. I'm just sick and I just try to be better every day. So I hope she just sees that I'm a hardworking, sick, but loving and caring and running machine.
So now people that know me, that I'm going to be you may get mad at me. I don't know. But people that know me, if I don't say what I'm about to say, they were like, I can't believe Jeff let that slide. So I'm not allowed to let that slide. I want to encourage you. I must figure out the best way to say this. I want to encourage you to make your wife your higher priority. And
Agreed.
the reason is because your kids are going to move out. And when they do, you're stuck with somebody. And you better make that your bigger priority.
No,
So
she is, and I
I
agree.
know. Yeah, I know. But
I
because the way it was said, if I don't say it, everybody who knows me like, Jeff, that is not you. So I love you. I love your wife. Now, on that same topic, and the reason I say that is because I know that you have stopped drinking. I know you've stopped doing a lot of other things, and I know you're a different person because of that. And I've told you even the last time I talked to you is that I respect everything that you have gone through and how you have begun to transform your life. And the reason I said, how does your wife, kind of see the new Cody and everything now is because I imagine you are drastically different than the person you used to be. And I believe that because you go for runs and because you've gotten clean and yes, you still struggle with, mental illness and stuff, you are just a fundamentally different person. And for that, I imagine she sees that difference. And I was just curious what she thought about it. So,
I didn't know how to answer that. Yeah.
I'm assuming she likes you better sober.
Oh yeah, 100%. And with on what you said, making her a priority. I really have been. I've been feeling that. We've had our issues. And it's really because of that reason. I have a hard time kind of shifting my energy. Right? I don't know how anybody has more than two kids. Under the ages of 10. Right? My daughter's 7. My son's 3.5. And I think with me focusing on me and like the running and kind of doing all that the past couple of years, and then trying to be there for them, I have slacked in that direction, and I've been
Well,
feeling it, but I've been trying to make it a point. So don't think I haven't.
well, no. But the other thing, the caveat that you have is that the younger your children are, the harder that is to do
Right. It
because
is.
they demand more attention, and they demand more attention from your wife too. And so she's going to struggle the same way, and that's just the reality of it. Isn't? But like I said, I have to bring it up because I tell people that all the time here, and they like, I can't believe you would let that slide. So I did not let that slide. Get off my back. So
No, never.
sticking on the topic of running, right, a little bit. We are an ultra running type podcast here, so we want to talk ultra running as well. And we talked a little bit about how running has helped you with getting control of your thoughts, to allow you to get the mental clarity, to express your thoughts, to think your thoughts, to get some sort of slowness in your mind to be able to process them. But you got into ultra running too. So how did you make this bridge to say, I'm going to start running ultras?
I decided to do 50 marathons, 50 days. This is really what brought me into the ultra scene. I completed 15 marathons, gave out on halfway through the 16th. But with doing these marathons, I joined a run club, Kodo Run Club. Kodo de Casa is a gated community that I do a lot of window cleaning business in. So I'm super familiar. And I was on Facebook one day and it came up on my feed. I'm like, I told my wife, I got all giddy. I'm like, I'm joining a run club. And she's like, good, you need it. Stop sitting on my couch like misery and misery. Well, I got. It's hard for me to meet people like, especially like this, and when I'm in a weird headspace. But got out of that comfort zone. I met up and with them and went on runs, dude. They are beautiful people. Just as the ultra community, they brought me in with open arms, right? They're older, a little older than I am, but I think I am the youngest one in the club. I'm not sure, but they full open arms, right? And I ran probably one or two of these marathons solo.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was like, and they would come and tell me their stories, right? And then I just created these friendships with them. And not only that, like financially, right? I was so new to it. I had a pair of like shoes I got from like Kohl's, that were hurting my feet. I didn't have any gels. I was throwing, which isn't a bad thing on this one, but the Himalayan salt just into my water bottles, but no like science behind it. I would just dump it in there, and I'm a heavy sweater, so I don't know. Um, but they showed me and kind of taught me about gels, salt intake, and then I learned a lot from YouTube. A lot of them are like triathletes, 100 milers, all the way down to like walkers, right? Just all paces, all walks of life. They encouraged me so much to keep going. After these marathons, I like it crushed me, right? I felt like I was just like I put myself on social media, I put myself on blast, right? And I felt like I was giving up like on my brother, and I was like failing my brother and failing everybody on social media, and I just took it real hard.
Mhm.
They reached out to me as well as the running community, and kind of brought me back into to where I needed to be. I signed up for my first 50K. I know you like this story. First 50K, what Harding Hustle it's called.
Yep.
This is my first ultra marathon experience. If you want me to talk about it, I totally can.
Yeah. But before
Yeah.
that, with like 15 marathons in 15 days is pretty incredible, especially for somebody who's not trained and, for better or worse, doesn't know what they're doing. You just went out there and ran them.
I agree. I agree. And to be honest, my pace is on it because I was working full time after these marathons, I would go work a full day. And as a window cleaner, it's up and down extension ladders, fast pace. Nothing's easy about it really, And I was doing these, I would have like, I couldn't finish less than 4 hours, 15 minutes, or else I wouldn't have time to go home, shower, and rush to work. So thank you for that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, people that are listening right now just heard you say that you did 15 marathons in 15 days. I know you were trying to do 50 and 50, but you did 15 in 15 days at 4.5 hours, 4 hours and 15 minutes and less.
It's pretty good. That's what I was going to say. So going back to, unless you want to stay there, but going back to Harding Hustle, I heard there was a little bit of issues with that one. How did that one go?
So, Harding Hustle, first 50K, just getting there, right? I was super excited, super amped up, still learning, right? There's so much to know about endurance running, as far as, again, the gels, when to take them, what pace is even good for me in certain races and elevation and all this. I really didn't know shit that I do now. So, get there. There's a couple like guys that were just standing off to the side. Well, one of them was a gentleman by the name of Eric Clifton. Apparently, he is a legend in the ultra running world, right? As far as maybe over here, I don't know. I heard them talking about him and his buddy. They were talking about how they don't recognize anybody at this race or any races they've been going to lately. Because these guys, they're like 65, 70, I would assume, like still just crushing it out there. But his friend, the reason I say Eric Clifton was a legend is because his buddy made sure that I knew. He's like, as I was talking to them, I just introduced myself. Hey, I'm Cody. I heard them say they don't know anybody. So, hey, I'm Cody. I'm standing right here. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, that's great.
And his buddy goes, I start talking a little bit, and his friend goes, dude, I just want you to know you're talking to a legend right now. And I'm like, okay. What does that mean? He's like, this is Eric Clifton, man. This guy's been in the ultra scene and just doing big things. Just know that you're talking to a legend right now. And I'm like, dude, that just got my vibe way higher, right? I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking to the right people. So the race starts, and I was so blown away by the front runner's pace. I trained on the same route to do this race, right? And I'm not a very fast runner. I get I have my spurts and whatever. But this race in particular is like pretty much 15 up, 15 down. It's not an easier one. And the front runners had I want to say 9.5 minute pace. And I was just I could see them. They were like because straight up, right? So mile away, mile and a half for the first couple miles. And I was like, dude, I gotta run faster. So I kept this pace of it was about a 10.5. And that's fast for me, especially going straight, going up.
Straight up.
Yeah, I'm not that type of runner, the elite, but I vibed on it, and I had so many good conversations that I just stopped drinking enough electrolytes. I don't even think I had tailwind. I don't even think after I'm a heavy sweater, so salt intake is super important for me. But the tailwind, after it was out of my bottles, I think I filled up just on water, no salt tabs. I remember saying this before. I didn't bring any gels with me. I wanted to use what they had at the aid stations. Huge mistake. Because they had gels that I couldn't even take down. The honey stingers, not a bad product, just not for me in my body. So I get up mile 9. I'm like, dude, I'm doing good. 10.5 minute pace. I'm feeling great. So many great conversations that all of a sudden, mile 9, a little over, I take a step and my calf just sinks in. It was my left calf. I'm like, oh no. I look at my watch, a little over 9 miles. Way too early. Way too early to feel this, right? And I knew this as rookie as I was. And David Goggins came in my mind. He's a big inspiration for me and so many others. I relate to his story a lot, right? And who's going to carry the boats, bitch? Right? I swear this came in my head, and I'm like, grind, dude. You got to grind, right? Pain. Feel the pain, but channel it. I don't know. It sounds crazy, right? But this is what I was telling myself. And I still had maybe another 8 miles, 7 miles to go. And it was climbing. I think about mile 14, I was descending down the first summit, because you summit Majestica, come down, and then you go summit Santiago Peak, and then back down, and then back up Majestica one more time. But the first time going down, descending it, I was fighting the cramp, and then all of a sudden, I was starting to run again, and I'm going, and then it just sinks in, boom, and everything just locked up, and I just went tumbling. That was my first fall of the race, and I'm like, oh man, it was like
It's rocky up there.
It's super rocky. I'm surprised I didn't, tuck and roll. Thank you for my skateboarding days. Tuck and roll, I learned, but I fell, and I felt good. Luckily it's right by the aid station. I take some salt tabs. Way too late. I really just couldn't recover, because I still try to keep that pace. In my mind, I'm like, I didn't know about slowing down. That's something I knew. It was like, go harder. So I take those salt tabs, and I'm like, okay, they're going to kick in. So I go to summit Santiago Peak, and I'm hurting, man. I'm hurting. I'm like, to the point where I'm like, dude, am I even gonna do this? You know, I'm like a little over 15 miles, and I'm like ready to quit. You know, but the vibe's going. I vibe easy, so and I try to bring the vibe too. So I get to the top, I change out my socks. I took about a 10 to 15 minute break because I knew I needed it. I just couldn't even. Really though, my legs, my calves were in my thighs at this point. I had a shooting pain going up my thigh. Both calves were sunken in, and then I was starting to feel pressure in my kidney area, right? And this is what I didn't know that's a bad sign. I'm like, dude, you're badass. Just keep going. And I get down. I fell a bunch more times. I pushed it hard. I got to mile 23-ish or something. And I did a little video clip on like, Instagram. I'm like, dude, nothing's working right now. And when I did this video, it went from like thighs to, like shooting pains in both thighs to now my sides were sinking in. My neck was cramping. My forearms were sunken in, like in my fingers, like everything you could imagine cramping was happening, right? And I'm like walking, yelling at my legs, screaming at my legs. And one of the experienced ultra runners came by and saw me yelling at my legs and was like, dude, he was about to run by me and then but I think he like thought about it twice and he's like, okay, we gotta get this guy ready or get him down the mountain. And he gave me his Coke. I love Coke, dude. It's so yummy, especially in the ultra scene. But he's like, here, have a drink of it, and then I think as we talked and I was so out of it, I was like about to pass out on the trails. Like I was just so I could barely hold a conversation, so much pain and like everything was going wrong. He gave me all his Coke. He's like, just drink the bottle, dude. You'll learn more about Coca-Cola as you get into the ultra scene, but this will get you another 2 or 3 miles. It didn't, I was way too far gone for it to work. But it was a good thought. And then he had me shoot down a gel. So I had one more gel. I shot it down and I fell. And like, there was points where he helped me up because I couldn't get up by myself. I'm like,
Jeez.
like trying to roll over, but like it was cramping more. Like it was like each movement was like not working. I finally get to maybe mile 27 roughly, and a Jeep pulls up the fire road. It's the race is on just a one massive fire road. He pulls up, and he pulled up because other finishers told them that there's somebody on the trail, probably yelling at his legs, losing. It looked like he's gonna die. So they sent him up there, and he let me sit in his car, drink some water, and the other guy that was watching me was like, I got to finish my race. I'm sorry. It was good to meet you.
I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out. And I'm like, oh, I'll see you at the bottom. He's like, yeah, right. So I sat in the car and he's like, if you want to finish, I will trail behind you, give you some distance, trail behind you and just make sure you're okay, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to give up. Still had that David Goggins mentality going. I'm like, I can do this. I can do this, right? And I went 100 feet, 100 yards, something like that, and I fell again because every step was just everything was just cramping and sinking in, and I hit that mental block. This was probably the biggest mental block I've ever had in my running. Uh, it was like this wall that I just couldn't. It was 2 miles left downhill, and I just couldn't see myself. I don't even think I could have, like, physically.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't. I probably had to crawl, or like I probably would have died. I don't know. So I called it. I was, super bummed out. I get to the bottom. He lets me out of the car, and everybody that finished, the race director, I get out of the car and I'm like having to move my legs with my arms. I'm like, 1, 2, 1, 2. And I sit down and talk to the EMT, and he tells me, look, man, you look like you're in bad shape, but it's hard to tell. I don't really have anything that I could tell you if you are right now. If you don't feel better in 4 hours, go to the emergency room.
Mm.
And I'm like, no fucking way. No fucking way. I'll figure this out. My wife picks me up. Thank the Lord I didn't have to drive home. And dude, my kids were, I didn't tell you this before, but my kids were in the car, and I actually, as soon as I got in the car and started driving, everything was cramping, so I'm like doing weird stuff in the seat. But at the same time, she had to pull over so I could throw up.
Oh, jeez.
And this is when the throw up started happening. And I just started throwing up and like moaning. And my kids started crying.
Oh.
This was the biggest downfall to this story, was upsetting my daughter like that and my son. We get to the house. I crawled hands and knees from the car up my stairs and laid on the floor. At the time, my kids were sleeping in the bed with my wife, and it's hard for me to sleep with all of them. We have even with a king, or I don't even know what we have. I think we have a king. Not enough space, so I had this a Tempur-Pedic like floor mat. So I would sleep on the floor. So I just crawled to it and I laid there. And my wife was like, "What do you need?" I'm like, "Just LMNT." I had a bunch of those 1,000 milligram packets, right? I shot a couple of those back, and I waited, and I waited, and I just kept trying to drink water and like just trying to make it back. And everything was cramping. Everything. Like at this point, I had abs at the time. My abs protruded out and folded over, which I've never seen happen to me personally or anybody else. But at the same time, I know I keep talking about it, but I want you to know the experience. At the same time, is everything in my legs cramping. Even my toes were like spread out and like the arches and everything. And at the same time, I was loving this, right? Because for some reason, to me, I can push myself. If I can push myself mentally like that, the fit now, in my mind, I'm like, I just have to figure out the physical side of this, right? I know, like, I don't know why. This is just my thoughts at the time. And I started to come back. I got up, I took a shower, I went downstairs. I think I was able to take down some crackers, but before you know it, everything changed. Within minutes. Like, I think I went to the bathroom and I was like, I sat down because I couldn't stand, So I sat down and all of a sudden I'm like, everything just turned. And I started throwing up again. I'm like, sitting down, throwing up, like I don't know what to do. And then I started to like pass out. That's when things just shifted. I'm like, oh my God, I'm passing out, throwing up, cramping. Like it couldn't have gotten any worse. And if it did, I probably would have needed an ambulance or something, right? So I took that advice and I went to the emergency room and I waited. I was in a wheelchair, but I waited 3 hours in the emergency. And it was only 3 hours. It was super busy. I was throwing up, passing out in the wheelchair. Jeez. People were looking at me like I'm sick. And I would have to tell them, no, I don't know what is going on with me, but I pushed myself too hard, and maybe they thought I was on drugs or something, but they got my blood work. And as soon as they got my blood work, like, oh shit, they couldn't even find a vein. They poked me so many times. I was so dehydrated. But as soon as they got the blood work back, they rolled me back, put an IV in my arm. And that's when I started to kind of get a little bit of relief. Finally, I was like, dude, they still put me in the waiting room. But once things started to really, I got a room pretty quickly after that, and then even the nurse was like, "You really pushed your body." And then that's where I found out about like, I don't know the correct word for it, but the short word would be rhabdo, right? That's where I really learned about this. And really, your body's breaking down a certain protein and it's putting it in, your body's just not able to break it down and your kidneys start to fail. I had blood in my urine. And so if I did those extra 2 miles, right, it's potential of like, you can hit a certain point with rhabdo where you ruin your body for the rest of your life. And this is where I learned it. I'm glad. So I take it easier now when I have these signs. But that would be my first 50K ultra marathon experience.
Well, you're definitely talking people into doing their first if they haven't done one before.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
I'm a little smarter.
There is a lot smarter ways you can go about doing things in the running scene or running an ultra.
So on that, what have you learned? What did you learn?
Okay.
I've got like a whole page of notes from that, but I'm not going to, recite all the things I think I learned from your experience of what you would not want to do. But for yourself, what is something that you took home from this? You're like, I'm going to do this differently next time. At least one thing, I hope.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, first, for me, I vibe really easy, right? And that could put my pace in different paces, right? And like, I kind of go into it a little more. Race your own race. I understand you feel that way, and to be honest, I'm still figuring out how to kind of distribute, in certain times. But race your own race, your own pace. Don't get mixed up on what you see in front of you, right? Because there's always somebody better than you, right? Especially at the races.
Yeah.
But really, for me on this race it was the gels and the fueling and the electrolytes. Those are two mandatory things you have to know, not have to know, you have to figure out before you can even do certain mileage, right? And then it's like tampering with it and figuring out what pace you can do and how many gels you need to take down at certain times.
And I think those two are like that. And also like starting too fast. They're three of the hardest things for anybody to learn.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I still struggle with it. I'm sure Jeff still struggles with it, especially in nutrition. Because
how many people do you know that tell you they go out too fast? Every runner I
everybody, at every race. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, I was gonna say the only race I didn't go out too fast was the backyard ultra, just because I had a set time. And I was like, why don't I run all my races like this, you idiot?
Interesting. I thought you were going to say Cocodona, dude.
Oh no, I always go out too fast on that, even though I try to go.
It's such a long race.
I know, it sucks.
He's trying to get that first 50K over with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think, when I was writing notes, I wrote most of those same things down too. I did not expect you to say race your own race as your first thing, but I thought, when you said that, I thought, okay, that's good. I was not even catching that. Obviously, everybody listening is like, man, he needs to figure out how to hydrate himself, because if he doesn't, he is just losing his mind. But that race was in 2023. We know that you did a 24-hour event after that, which was a 100-mile club run for kids, ultra running party. It had 6, 12, 24-hour options, as well as a marathon, a 50-mile, 100-mile event. You did the 24-hour race, I believe, on that. You got to mile 80. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they offer a 48-hour as well as a 72-hour race there too.
All on a high school track, right?
It's all around a half-a-mile track. Oh. So you guys would love it.
Not me. I mentioned that because obviously from the Harding Hustle 50K, you decided to do another ultra. You did this running party like we just talked about. But the other thing that really captures my attention and Steve's attention about you, which is a little bit different in the ultra running community, there are a lot of runners that do FKTs. They do their own personal challenges where they decide they're going to run from one side of their state to the other, whatever it is that they want to do, right? Because ultra running is not just signing for a race. It can be anything, like you said earlier, anything over a marathon, and that people kind of do. And so one thing that we find fascinating about you is that you put yourself out there to do these what you have called adventure races, and not the adventure races that you may see on TV with like Bear Grylls or anything like that. Not like they're just doing these kind of crazy things, but these are actual adventure races that you do on your feet, your running events that you kind of sign up for, and so not sign up for that you, I guess, just do on your own accord. So one of these things you did was the PCT Adventure, and just to describe it for those listening, it was originally planned to go from the Mexico-U.S. border all the way to Big Bear using the Pacific Coast Trail. Mm-hmm. And you planned to do 266 miles in 6 days, which would average out to be about 45 miles a day. And you had to take this on solo. So tell us how this adventure came about and why did you want to do it in the first place?
Well, really how it came about. I was struggling, and I get in, highs and lows, and I get into these. I don't, when I am on my lows, I need something to work for,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why running is amazing, right? Because you can plan something. I can put my shoes on and go run 100 miles if I want to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I needed something to push me, something to work for, but I needed something to scare the shit out of me, right? Uh, so I needed something to scare me. That's what it was, like when I made that goal, it terrified me. Did I even, I don't, I didn't think I was even gonna, so it was supposed to be with another friend, right? It wasn't supposed to be solo,
Oh, okay.
but things happened, didn't work out. And last minute, I decided to go solo. It was literally the day I was supposed to get picked up, the morning I'm supposed to get picked up, it didn't work out. And 12 o'clock rolls around, I call an Uber, This is how much it means. These adventures mean to me. They really do. Because I get way more out of it than, I don't want to say way more out of it than doing a race, but it's like I do at the same time because there's different dynamics to it, right? But I get there. I lost a whole day of trekking. So I ended up only having 5 days because I got to the border about, I think I got dropped like 3:30 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had enough time to kind of set up my tent and kind of feel some feels. And I saw the PCT board, that everybody signs. I signed it. I think I put Mexico border to Big Bear Lake, Cody B or something like that. It's super cool. But that's like these adventures, right? Just these little things. These mean a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
To experience something like this. And yeah, so I decided to do it solo, got there, had 5 days, and I after, the multi-day adventures are not like they're a whole nother ball game, right? And this was just another learning experience of it. My pack I just couldn't run with it. Maybe I could have got I had my friend custom make this pack for me, and that what made it even more special, right? And maybe I pushed him. He did this very last minute, it wasn't like sized and everything. It was like he made it, I put it on and I went with it. So maybe I could have adjusted my pack. And we plan to do that, by the way. I already hit him up. So this pack was just way too heavy to run. So I said, fuck it. I can't. This is the first day, right? First day, I'm like, I tried. I tried to jog, and I did a little bit, but I think the first day is like 7,000 elevation gain or something, and my pack's about 30 pounds.
That'll slow you down.
Well, in the through hiking, 30 pounds is not really that bad, right? That's actually pretty good for a pack. But I'm a small dude. I'm 5'6", $150 on a good day. And so it was just a lot of weight. And so I'm like, and again, this is the adventure, right? I like to adjust and overcome, right? And so I was there by myself, pushing myself no matter what. I did 20 miles a day with a 30-pound pack on, and I fucking grinded.
Yeah.
I grinded. I loved it. I loved every part of it because a lot of it was just grinding. I wouldn't have, like 20 miles with a 30-pound pack. That's pretty.
That's good.
To me, that's badass, right?
Yeah.
I was proud of myself, and that's kind of super cool in itself. But first mistake on this multi-day, I decided to save weight. I wasn't going to bring a mat, a floor mat, a sleeping mat. Dumbass, right? Fucking dumbass. First huge mistake. And I knew that the first night I camped out to go in the morning, right? I felt that it just sucked the energy out of me. I was freezing all night, and I'm like, how am I going to do this? The first morning I wake up. The mistake was I borrowed a sleeping bag, and it was a 20-degree sleeping bag, but a very old, worn sleeping bag. And Mike, if you see this, thank you for letting me. You're the man, and I don't mean to talk shit. And it just without the mat and that bag. Oh my gosh, these nights they're cold over there, man. They're like it's like a desert, like a bone chilling cold. But then you're feeling it all night because you're laying on the cold ass ground. And I tried to put a thermal blanket that I just like an emergency one that I had. I tried to put it down the second night to like I'm like, oh, maybe it'll shoot my back to my back or something. No, that second night of camping, 2 or 3 in the morning, the wind just started whipping. So all of a sudden, let me backtrack a little bit. I could have did a better job of getting a better tent too. With these multi-days and like the gear itself, it's really expensive. I'm a window cleaner. I do good. I make a good living, but I don't do great. I live in Orange County with 2 kids and a wife, right? So it's like, that's all I got to say. I didn't have the right gear, but this tent in particular was allowing the wind to kind of whip in there, and I could just feel it. It was like bouncing off the sides and like doing like this whirlwind thing, and I'm like shivering. And I'm like, dude, do you want to lay here and be miserable? It's already 3. Luckily, I was at a campground. I had time. There was a bathroom, concrete bathroom, super clean too. I was shocked. Really impressed. I packed up all my gear and I went and huddled in this bathroom for a couple hours. I made coffee. I think I made some noodles, did a couple Instagram videos, dude. Talked to a couple hikers that packed up as well. They were cool. And then I made the trek again. I did another 20 days 20 miles, day of hiking, 20. And then I made it to a hostel. So on my 3rd day of actually being out there, but 2nd day of trekking. But I made it to a hostel. And because, dude, the conditions were like cold, dude. Like I'm a California boy. Anything over 78, too hot. Anything under 70, too cold. But so I made it to the hostel, and this hostel was super cool. There was again late in the season, so no other hikers were there originally. One showed up, but late in the night. Well, super cool. I wish I remembered the name of it. Oh, tiny houses. They rent tiny houses, and then they have like a hostel in their office section. But bunk beds, bro. They had a foot massager. I was like, what? So I'm like enjoying myself. Nice heat and everything. I check my phone and I look up the next section. The next section. So I could do 20 miles, right? 20 miles, and then I have like an hour and a half to kind of get my stuff set up for the night, and kind of just relax a little bit, rest the feet. But this section there was no hostel, there was no, the only place was either camping right off the trail. And again, with my gear, I was like I'm going to die. I'm just going to freeze to death out here. There was a pit toilet, a pit bathroom. Yeah, just a concrete bathroom, super dirty.
Yeah.
But I saw that, right? And I'm like, oh my God, do I want to do that? And then I look up the weather and there's a red warning for wind advisory. And it was so I passed through the Cleveland National Forest, and then you come through like Borrega Springs, right? And that's like where it starts to get deserty and wind. Oh my gosh. And it's like the wind and the cold, right? I knew I was that section. It scared the shit out of me. I convinced I just didn't want to quit, so I kept going. I get to the I get to the pit bathroom. All right, this is my home for the night, you know. And it's small. I didn't realize it at the time. Somebody told me after, but this pit bathroom is the same area where the ABC 50 miler start the starting line is. And that's one of the 50-mile races that I've done. My best one, actually. Everything went smooth and it went right. But it was that's super cool. I just sat there and I looked at a beautiful sunset. Couple of through hikers came, French, I believe they're French women, they both quit their jobs and came to our country to hike the PCT.
That's crazy.
I was like, what? And like, we shared stories. It was like, these are the things that adventures really mean, and it's weird, kind of the language, they had thick accents. So I was like trying to like pick it up or like just kind of stay along the conversation. But that was a whole nother experience in itself, right? And I slept in that bathroom. I told you guys this before. I slept in the bathroom, but to even be able to, it was fucking dirty. And the other one, I felt bad for the French women because it smelled ridiculous, and I picked the cleaner one. And I even told them, look, you guys, we could share this because I know that one is bad. And they didn't want to, which respectfully I get, I understand, but I didn't want to be a dick, right? It's like, I'm all nice and cozy and you guys are just smelling like crap. But I slept in this bathroom and I killed 2 black widows, massive, dude, massive ones when I got in there. And then all of a sudden I'm like laying down and I see this like huge wasp above me, like directly above me. And I scared the shit out of me. And somehow I was able to not kill it. I used my trekking pole and I somehow like scooped it down with it, and then it like fell to the ground and kind of just rolled out, like crawled out of the bathroom. I'm like, whoa, I didn't imagine this was gonna happen at all. I thought I was gonna get stung, so got out of that, slept in there. I wake up the next morning and I so even this next section, right? So the next section, 20 miles from this, there's another campground. They have campgrounds in like cabins, but they weren't answering their phone. I called them for like so many hours, and they just weren't answering. And then this is what I'm like, okay, I am not going to put up with another night. And so in the section, right, you're in the desert. You're in the desert. You're in the sand. It was cold, right? And again, I'm not really used to the cold. So I think about halfway through the day, they weren't answering their phones, and I was like losing reception in and out on the trail. And finally, so I made the call to get picked up. I'm like, okay, it's time, and they were totally fine, okay with it, right? I just didn't want to risk it. I got what I needed out of this adventure. I was doing another 20. I would have only done another 20 miles anyways to be back home in time to go back to work and all that. So it wasn't like it wasn't like failing, I wasn't giving up in my mind, it was more so just kind of managing it a little. Like, if that makes sense, like, more a risk assessment, I guess you could call it. But as an experience, like that's what I get from these, these adventures is the experience.
Yeah. And I think it's different too than a race because you're doing everything from the planning to logistics to food and all that. In a race,
Right.
Like, I mean, the cookie donut, for the most part, you can do it uncrewed if you want to, because it's all set up for you. Even like the Trans Rockies run and everything, that's like a stage race where it's all, so like this is all you,
Yeah.
which has got to be fulfilling.
Yeah, and it's all learning too. I mean, Steve knows me, right? He knows me by now. I don't plan shit, right?
It does not.
I make a plan, and then I don't really plan for that plan. And that's something I'm working on right now too, because logistically, you know, you can't do these runs like that, and I've learned that
Yeah.
the hard way.
I mean, you say you can't do it that way, but you do, and you have.
I
Like,
do, but I learn the hard way, and I put myself in certain situations where a little more planning would have kind of maybe had a better outcome.
okay,
But then again, maybe not.
yeah, I mean, I agree. Yes, so yes, better planning. Everybody listens. Like, yes, Jeff, better planning would have helped him. So
Yeah.
yes, better planning would help you. However, it isn't always about that. Like for a
Mhm.
lot of people who run ultras and are in the running community and stuff, it's really just about the experience. It's not,
Yeah.
if we can get past this idea that every race that we sign up for, every run that we go out on has to have a certain pace, a certain time, a certain experience, or even a certain finish, or has to end in a buckle. If we can get past that, then for many of us, I think we can fall back into really a love of really why we do it in the first place, right?
Yeah.
We may laugh, like your stories. Here's what's crazy is I want to run a race that Cody Bradley's in, or I want to run an adventure race that Cody Bradley's in, because at a minimum, you're going to draw me into a conversation and you're going to draw me into a community just because you're going to make me feel like normal. And I think your story is everybody's story. And I think, and it's like, yes, everybody can have war stories, and everybody can have experiences that are like insane, and yours could be different than mine and Steve's could be, Steve's probably an angel unlike the rest of us, right? Who knows, right? But your story,
This guy.
right? But your story is really everyone's story, and that's the experience of running ultras in the first place. And so I think that's what you get out of your adventure races and everything. And I know we're running short on time and everything.
Mhm.
And so you have also, Steve mentioned at the very beginning, you did the ABC 50 miler. You have
Mhm.
accomplished that race as well. You just recently attempted the Joshua Tree FKT adventure. You did this with Steve as well. And I don't know if there's anything we want to talk about in that, Steve, or not, but
No, we don't have to hit it if we are out of time.
all right. And so really, I guess the question I have is that if you had to choose, right? Because, and it's not even really a choice. I don't even know why I'm going to say it that way. I was going to say, if you had to choose between adventure or signing up for a race or running one of these adventures that you go out on, which would you choose? I don't want to ask that anymore, because the answer is going to be the adventure side of it, or it should be, based off something you said earlier. And the reason is that
It is.
you say you get more out of that type of thing than a race. So my last question on this kind of topic is what is it that you actually get out of it?
Ooh. Well, I mean,
Because it's not a buckle.
Mhm.
no, I mean, so my first couple races, I in the failure of them, the marathons, and then I took them hard, right? And I running is such an outlet and so much to me. It means so much to me, to where if I'm getting upset because I'm not finishing or like accomplishing a goal, or like, then it's not really doing what I want it to. And so when I'm by myself in the middle of fucking nowhere, and I know somebody can't save me, right? Like, the choices I make is even from fueling to hydrating to to what step I take on what pace or whatever, and it's just so much. It just there's so much. It means so much more. That's a hard question to answer, really, because
I think you answered it.
Yeah. No, you answered it beautifully.
okay,
The statement that you made that was really powerful, and I'm probably going to mess it up, was you said it's an outlet for you, and it's something that you do to help yourself. And I'm assuming that you're having fun with it.
Yeah.
And if you are taking these failures and you're taking what, your races hard, you're not having fun with it. And I think a
Yeah.
lot more people would enjoy running more if they took that same type of attitude,
Mhm.
where in a race, if they don't get the goal that they want to get, then, maybe they don't just get as upset, right? Because like do we do this because we want to hit a certain pace or have a goal? Maybe, but like to get back to why you want to do it, and it's having fun and using it as a tool for an outlet. I think that was really powerful.
Yeah. Thank you. It made more sense when you said it too.
No, no, bro.
Yeah.
He actually restated what you said. When
No,
you
I
said
just
it,
mean here's
no,
somebody else.
it
It
is
makes sense.
it is crystal clear. I mean, I
Yeah.
agree, Steve. I
Well,
think
real quick,
it's a
I,
good
I
thing.
want to make a point too, because ultra running, it is becoming more common,
Mhm.
right? And you see these people on Instagram, they're crushing it, by, all these guys are doing amazing things. And I got caught up in that a little bit in the beginning, right? And in my mind, I'm like, this is the way you have to do those things
Mhm.
and hit these certain goals and to be able to get your story out there, right? And that's a big load of doo-doo, right? Because just being in the community and making friends, right? Like, look at me now. Shit, but for those listening, don't get caught up in that.
Mhm.
It's very important to remember why you're running and what it does for you. And yeah, the races are awesome, and buckles are awesome, and goals are awesome. But remember why you did it, why you even want that goal. I mean, some people, yeah, okay, maybe you just want that buckle, right? That makes you feel like you're cool or something like that, I don't know. But I guarantee that like that's like 1%.
Mhm.
So don't let that shit to kind of steer you off track. And the guys that are crushing it on the Instagram, because I follow them and they inspire me on the daily. He's one of them. He's one of them. Yeah, like use them as motivation, but
Mhm.
don't let that dictate your running. Your running.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is a big thing that many runners fall into the trap, is that we compare ourselves to those we see on social media and to those elites. And so then when we experience our first ultra, we experience even the training to get ready for one, we feel like we're never going to be able to accomplish it. We feel like a failure before we even hit the starting line sometimes, if we're comparing our
Yeah.
paces or we're comparing our mileage compared to someone else. And
Exactly.
so you can't do that and enjoy this sport. It is hard. Ultra running is hard. And social media does not always look hard, because that doesn't always look as appealing unless you're David Goggins, like making
Yeah.
everybody look like you're an idiot, right? So that's just different. We're not David Goggins, and so
Yeah,
we're not necessarily elite runners. But then if we know you're not elite, why are we comparing ourselves to them?
You're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
But we do.
Because everybody
But
does.
Yeah.
right, because we can't help ourselves. I want to be fast like that, and we all,
Yeah.
yeah, we look at all those times, we look at how we place, and yeah, it's just crazy. Yeah. So Cody, I've enjoyed this a lot, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. But before we wrap up, we do this segment we call Coach's Corner, where we take a question that gets submitted to us from one of our listeners, either through Instagram, through a comment, maybe on one of our previous episodes. But generally, we get them through Instagram, either through our Blueprint Ultra Instagram account, or Steve and I get it directly through through our runners, or through our own personal Instagram. And so we will get a question from a listener. And so if you're listening and have a question, we invite you to send it in. But today's question comes from Troy Rasmussen, and he asked a question, and it is, what are the basics for foot care, blister prevention, or blister treatment? He's going to be running the Massanutten 100 coming up, and he expects to have wet feet. So, Steve, as somebody who's run the Cocodona 250 multiple times, and you probably have more foot trauma than most, because when you're on your feet for that long, what are some things you do to prevent blisters, particularly dealing with wet feet?
Yeah, so with the wet feet, there's only a couple spots in Cocodona where you have a couple river crossings. So
True.
It was crazy. The first year, though, the first year at Cocodona that I did it, it was actually the second year. They had to reroute it because of some forest fires, and it was like 2 miles in. It was the first river crossing, and that's during that first day where it's hard and it's like a cheese grater on your feet, and people were just running through it, and then just it would tear their feet up.
Mm.
So I actually, if you can, before you hit any wet spots, usually take my shoes off, take my socks off, cross the river, dry everything off, put everything back on. And I know sometimes races where there's like multiple river crossings, that's tough.
Mhm.
But I think the biggest thing is like the prevention. I don't do anything like salty britches or body glide on my feet, but I do pre-tape, and I pre-tape where I know I get my hot spots. That's like my big toe, my pinky toe. This is a weird fact about me, but my middle toes are webbed feet. So they're yeah, they're webbed up to like the middle. So I don't get any blisters in the middle of those two. So I'm fine there.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a little weird.
Fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact. But and I also tape the back of my heels because that's where usually a big blister comes, especially like a longer race like that, because your foot strike's a little bit different than when you're actually doing a lot of running. So pre-taping and then taking care of hot spots immediately when they pop up. That's like one of the big things. I don't always practice what I preach, but if I'm in like a long section between aid stations and I know it's like going to be like another 5 or 6 miles, then I'd rather spend 15 minutes taking care of a blister than spend like another hour or 2 hours in agony just trying to walk on that blister over and over again. So I always have like a blister kit with me in my pack, just in case, with extra tape, band-aids.
What kind of tape do you use?
I use it's called KT blister like friction tape. It's not like the real, not like the KT tape, but it's an you can get it on Amazon. It comes in like a little cylinder, and they're already pre-packed and like they come in like 2-inch strips, I think. So they're pretty much ready to go.
So I do not tape my feet. I don't think I've ever had to do that. I probably need to learn the art of taping my feet. I just haven't ever done it. I'm always afraid that I'm going to have the seams between them. It can cause more friction and more issues and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I know some people are terrified of that, or some people I've talked to on the podcast before have taped their feet too tightly and they've had their skin basically like stuck. So I'm terrified of taping, but it is a good prevention skill once you learn how to use it. So I don't want people to not try it. I use squirrel nut butter on my feet sometimes, but I also use this other product called Trail Toes. I predominantly use Trail Toes. What I have learned is I do that before I get started for my races, just to kind of go ahead and get my feet and toes lubed up. And then over the course of the race, I will reapply all the time. Just anytime I'm at a place that I'm going to kind of stop for a bit, I will take my socks off and apply and deal with any blisters that I have at that moment. So there's a lot of different ways you can deal with your blister. Some people say don't pop, other people say pop. I say if it's causing you a lot of pain and because it's so big, then you may want to make a little indentation or slice in it, let it drain, and don't lose the skin off the top. Keep it covered. Make sure you cover it back because you don't want to lose that skin at all. But when you relieve the pressure, you feel like a new person.
Better. Yeah.
Oh Lord. So, but people say all the time, don't let it pop on its own. Like, God, it's a long time to wait sometimes. And so it just depends. I'm not a medical professional. I will tell you to try your own approach. The only life lesson is don't remove that skin, regardless of what you choose, because you want to die. Cody, any thoughts on blister prevention from your experiences?
Change out socks. I try to change out my socks if I'm, a longer run, but every like 50K. That just seems I don't really have too much foot problems, but I do tend to get blisters, like on one certain toe. I don't know why, but yeah, it's super weird. But yeah, other than that, change your socks and make sure your toenails are cut.
Yeah. That was Coach's Corner. So Troy, thank you so much for sending the question, and we appreciate it. It was a great one, and I think it's pretty practical for a lot of us. So we appreciate you sending it to us. And Cody, thank you for being our guest. We appreciate you so much. For those who are listening, they can follow you on Instagram. You have talked a lot about the different types of things that you would post on Instagram. So if you're interested in hearing bathroom horror stories or watching Cody lay in the back of his truck celebrating a long run, check out his Instagram handle. It is, again, Running with Purpose 314. And it's Cody Bradley. So you can follow me there. It's the best place to keep up with you.
Yeah. So it's Running with Purpose _314.
I
don't know if that makes a difference. Yeah, but real quick.
Yeah.
So because we're still recording. For those that are struggling, there is, and you're in the running, you're involved in running. So there's an organization that I came across. Actually, Tim, our friend Tim, sent their page to me. Right, it's called bigger than the trails.
Mm-hmm.
If you're struggling, reach out to them. Go on their website. Right, they will give you tools to talk to a therapist free of charge.
Mm-hmm.
Free of charge, okay? Because
Yeah.
I understand the whole finding a therapist and insurance. It's that in itself is a hard time, right? And then telling somebody about your problems.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can do it online with them, and I've done this. I've used them myself. Look them up. Bigger than the trails. Just if you're struggling and you have no one to talk to, sometimes it's easier to talk to a professional, right? Because they get paid to listen to you, right? Like, it doesn't get better than that. You can tell them anything. It doesn't. No judgments. Reach out, look them up, reach out to them, get yourself some help.
Mm-hmm.
It's important. I want you to know you guys aren't alone, and we can go through it together.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that.
No,
Great.
I love
Yeah.
you, man. I think that is really good for you to say. Bigger Than Trail is a great organization.
Mhm.
So again, I would say check it out. It's a good thing to touch on. And Cody, you're the real deal. We appreciate you so much. And again, thank you for just being honest, vulnerable, transparent, whatever, adjective I could say here to describe you. But you're an incredible human being, and I'm not just like kind of saying it because I want to. I'm saying it because I mean it. Like, I truly do mean it, and I respect you a ton.
Thank you.
And and I hope your wife listens to this and she says, yes, Jeff was right.
You already know she is, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. She's probably going to say, Jeff needs to be our friend. So anyway,
Yeah.
but again, thank you, everyone. Steve, any closing thoughts before I wrap us up?
Nope, I think we covered it all. Appreciate
Fantastic.
you, buddy.
Yeah. Well, if there's anything that we can do for those who are listening, please reach out to us at any time. Again, thank you for taking the time to listen to the podcast and listen to the show. Reach out, connect with Cody. He'd love to kind of learn more about you as well. We thank you for taking the time and plugging us in your ears. And so we will see you next episode. See you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.